Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening to you, and welcome to the start of our third series of New Arab Debates, coming to you from the Jordanian capital, Amman. As a neighbor of Syria, Jordan has been badly affected by the civil war there. Like other adjoining states, it's been subjected to a massive and growing influx of refugees and has struggled to cope with them. Part of a huge international effort to respond to what some have called the worst humanitarian crisis in a generation. But could the West have done more to prevent the civil war in Syria or bring it to an end? Our motion tonight suggests exactly that. The West has failed the Syrian people. Before we came on air, we took a vote among our studio audience. We'll take another one at the end of the debate. We'll then compare the two and see how effective our speakers may have been at changing minds. Speaking for that motion, Fawaz Tello is a Syrian opposition activist, jailed for 5 years by the Assad regime. He resigned from the anti-government Syrian National Council last year and continues to write about and coordinate within the broad opposition movement. Speaking against the motion, Dawood Kutab is an award-winning journalist and TV producer and founder of the Arab world's first internet radio station, Amman Net. He's a former professor of journalism at Princeton University and writes widely on Middle Eastern politics. He's also a columnist for Al Monitor. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our panel. Fawaz Tello, I'm going to start with you. The government of Syria has committed war crimes. The opposition has committed war crimes. Sounds like the Syrian people have let themselves down, not the West.
Actually, you can't compare between the and some individual acts here and there with the systemic policies which have been committed by
well, according to the UN, it's not just individuals here and there. The UN Human Rights Council, September 2013, said anti-government armed groups have committed war crimes, including murder, execution without due process, torture, hostage-taking, and attacking protected objects. They besieged and indiscriminately shelled civilian neighborhoods. Are you proud of that?
No, I'm not proud of that. I'm thinking about individual action here and the system.
This is a little more than individual action, isn't it? And these are the groups that you want the West to support?
No, actually, 90% of the groups which the West is not supporting, they are fair people. They are not making any kind of criminal. They are not extremists, and the West know them.
The European Union says the opposition is increasingly radicalized by Al-Qaeda elements.
And it will be more.
The report that they gave in October, increasingly radicalized.
Yeah, and this is part of the neglect of the world what's happening in Syria. When they will let the people for 3 years being massacred by this regime, you are pushing some of those people to be more extremists, and you are making this environment. By the way,
you say the West let the massacres happen?
Yeah, of course.
The West was responsible for stopping the massacres?
Of course. Why should
the West didn't start the civil war in Syria, did it?
It's not a civil. Look, it's a revolution. It's not a civil war. It's a revolution for dignity and freedom.
Whatever you call it, the West didn't start it.
Yeah.
Why is it the West's fight?
The West actually having a pressure upon one side. It's the Syrian opposition, military opposition, or the civil opposition for not be armed, for example. While on the other side, we see a river of arming for the Syrian troops, the government. We just want from the West, at least, by the American exactly, to be honest about that.
You wanted
their hand.
No, you wanted support for an opposition that you actually left yourself in 2012 because you said it was undemocratic.
Yeah, I said they are not doing their role very well, and I think
you were disillusioned with them. You had enough of them.
Look, this is
you had enough of them, but you still want the West to support them. How could the West make a partner out of people that you were disillusioned with?
This opposition, this is not the political opposition which I left, I'm taking care about. I'm caring about this people who is, this is the real opposition, those people who is fighting inside Syria, these civil groups who is struggling inside Syria. This is where we want the international community to focus. And anyway, from the West, at least we want them to raise their hand upon our case. Actually, the international community, the European and the American, especially the American, having a very great deal of pressure upon Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Turkey for not supplying us with arms. Otherwise, we could finish this regime since a long time. So they are part of the massacres because they are preventing us from defending ourselves.
How could you have finished the regime a long time ago? You've been disunited right from the start.
Even that
every month from April 2011, you had a different organization. Each one fell apart because everybody disagreed with each other. You had the National Coordination Committee for Democratic Change. That was the first one. Then you had the Syrian Revolution General Commission. Then that fell apart. Then you had the Transitional Council. That fell apart.
Actually,
every time you started arguing with each other and fighting with each other.
Groups,
so who was the West supposed to support?
The people who is fighting inside. You should have a partnership with those people, and then you can give them advices about the future of Syria.
In November 2011, William Hague, the British Foreign Secretary, said to you, put aside your differences and we can help you. But you never did.
We put it aside. We have a coalition, and all these groups is being representing inside the coalition, but it was useless. Actually, they want that to be united to go and negotiate with Bashar Assad, not to support us. They want to reserve this regime. This is the main core of the policy of the
the humanitarian aid that the West has poured into Syria?
Yes, because
this is also a failure?
Yes, because...
This is also, why? Why is it a failure?
We want it's not matter as to be dead with an empty or full stomach, you see. Let's prevent these people to be a refugee.
Let's and having a full stomach.
It's
tens of thousands of people are being fed by the international community who would have died.
Actually, the Arab world, especially the Saudi, the Qataris, the Emiratis, the Kuwaitis, is paying the main fund for this kind of aid. And anyway,
not according to the UN. The largest donor is the United States, according to the UN figures. The largest donor is the United States.
Let them stop these massacres. It's better than feeding the refugee. It's better than feeding 1 million refugees in Jordan. Give an environment and the chance for those people to go back to their country. Prevent the regime of destroying this area. Prevent the air force of the regime, or at least just raise the hand of the West that we can. So we can have our right to defend ourselves. We don't have the right to defend ourselves, while the other side have the full support from its alliance, which is the Russian and the...
Okay, we'll leave it there for the moment. Okay. Dawood Kutab, you say the West has not failed the people of Syria, but it's consistently raised their expectations that there were always going to be more arms, more intervention, more help, and it didn't come, did it?
Well, I think the West and the international community did not start what happened in Syria. I think the load of what needs to be done in Syria should be done by the Arabs and not by the West. The West, whoever expects a lot from the West, has an illusion. I always say that blessed are those with low expectations, for they shall not be disappointed.
Well, what were people in Syria supposed to make of President Obama, August the 31st, when he said, after careful deliberation, I have decided the United States should take military action against Syria regime targets? And then they didn't. What are they supposed to make of that? Well, one more broken promise.
No, the Syrians knew that the only thing that Obama cared about was to please the Israelis. The Israelis didn't want the chemical weapons, so that was the only reason why they wanted to bomb Syria. They weren't trying to make regime change.
But look at the effect a statement like that would have had in Syria. It would have raised expectations.
Yes.
It was designed to raise expectations.
But it was very clear, and the Americans made it very clear. We're only interested in the chemical weapons, and that's why many people, including the Syrian opposition, were against the strike on Syria, because they felt that was just to help the Israelis by getting rid of the chemical weapons. They weren't after Bashar al-Assad. They weren't after really helping change the situation. They were only trying to save their friend Israel.
But Dawood, there's a larger point here. When you go around the world trumpeting humanitarian principles, you oblige yourself to intervene and help.
But my problem is not the West.
And they didn't do it,
yes,
did they?
But
they didn't live up to the expectation that they raised.
I'm not defending the West. I just don't think the West, people who believe and expected much from the West, are the ones who have the illusion. I don't expect that from the West, because look what they've done in Iraq. They've invaded Iraq. Look what they've done in Afghanistan. Look what they've done in Palestine for so many years. They have not done anything. People are only going after their words, but they.
So which side are you on in this debate then?
Huh?
Which side are you on? Are you on the right side?
No, I believe that
maybe we should swap you around with
community. I believe Syrians, Arabs, and the West and the international community failed the Syrian people, and not just the West. I think the mistake is the people who think only the West failed Syrians. The Syrians failed Syrians, as you asked our guy. The Arabs failed the Syrians. The international community failed Syrians. So if you're just saying the West, and I'm against it. But if you're saying the whole world failed Syria, including
But
Syria,
you talk about the inconsistency of the West. The inconsistency came to its highest point, didn't it? When they started, first of all, telling Assad he has to go, and then opening a political track with him to talk about getting rid of chemical weapons. Then you praise him for getting rid of his chemical weapons. What's the next stage? Lunch at the White House?
I totally believe that the West made a mistake, but I don't think they failed the Syrian people, because as you said, and as you asked my colleague, the Syrian people failed themselves. The Syrian people created all these militias that are killing other people, that are taking, the body parts of their opposition. There has been war crimes on both sides. The Syrians have failed themselves. The Arabs have failed the Syrians. The international community has failed the Syrians. So just to say
one thing you would have expected is that the diplomacy would have been better than it was. The diplomacy failed as well, didn't it?
The diplomacy failed because the Russians were not involved, and the West was not willing to put any weapons, any men on the ground.
Well, Kofi Annan is quite clear that the West failed on the diplomatic front because it tried to get a resolution that it knew that the Russians and Chinese would not support.
Yeah, but I think all the Arabs have always wanted was the U.S. not to intervene, the West not to intervene. So all of a sudden we want the West to come back and intervene and put arms on the ground. Look what happened in Iraq. Look what's happening to Iraq now. Expectations should not be there. People are wrong in expecting the West and believing that the West really does outside of the shores. But
my point is that the West goes on raising those expectations. When you have the European Union, for instance, when you have the European Union lifting the arms embargo, what's it for? What kind of signal is it supposed to send to the people in Syria? That they're going to supply arms?
It's lip service. They have a charade that they are really interested in human rights, but we know outside of their own countries, they break their own principles. Look what they're doing in China. They're not respecting human rights. Americans are, hugging the Chinese who are violating human rights.
But it's a slightly different position, isn't it? Slightly different state.
It's the principle. You're saying they have principles, they don't have principles.
And you're saying it's a big mistake to ever think that the West has principles.
I think people should not expect much from the West, because we see, especially in the Middle East. Look what the West has done in the Middle East. They have the Balfour Declaration came from your country, from England. Look at the Sykes-Picot came from the West.
I knew that would come sooner or later. I knew that would come.
Look what they've done.
Every debate.
Look what they have done. Look what they have done in the Middle East. They've created problem after problem after problem. So, if you ask me, I wish the West would just stay out of the whole region. Nobody wants them to be in this region. They're trying to, and so to say
because you're doing such a good job with that.
No, but they are defending the bad guys. They're defending occupation. They're allowing the Israelis to get away with murder in Palestine.
And what about the humanitarian effort? Of no value whatsoever?
No. That's their guilt conscience being pleased by giving
guilt conscience, yes. Private donations, public donations, NGOs.
No, I'm talking about the government. Private donation is a different issue. I have no problem with Western support individuals, but Western countries, their politics outside of their countries is much different than inside their countries.
All right, Dawood Kutab, thank you very much indeed. All right, we're going to take your questions, ladies and gentlemen. On the motion, the West has failed the Syrian people. There's a lady in the second row. We'll just get a microphone to you.
Hi for everybody. I am a Syrian woman. I am a journalist. And also I am the mother of 2 sons and a wife of husband and a sister. And all of them inside Syria. And after 5 months, I lost my son. He killed inside Syria. He is engineer. 23 old year. I think this conversation today, the West, if he wants to help us, he will help us, because everything in his hand, and all the people know this. From 2 years, we ask America to help us. We don't want anybody to interfere in our country. If they say to Bashar al-Assad, go out, I think he will go out. Why all the West and all the world left the Syrian people alone? Why nobody support us? Because we haven't oil, we haven't treasure, we haven't anything in our world. I lost my son. Who will give me this? And I have another son inside also. Who will return my son to me? I am a mother. And I speak to American mother. I think they feel of me. All the mother on the world feel of us.
I think everybody in this room will be incredibly sorry for your loss.
Yes, but
I need to ask you the question: what kind of help do you think the West should have given?
Get Bashar out, and I think West can do this.
Dawood Kuttab.
America can do this. I think this. We are not dependent on coalition or anybody.
All right. I'm going to ask Dawood Kuttab to address that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's true what Tim said. It's heart-wrenching to hear your story and the stories of so many Syrians, and there are a lot of Syrians who are suffering. The question that we're trying to figure out is not what, but how. How anybody, the West or the East or the Arab countries, can help bring down a dictator who is a war criminal. I agree with you, Bashar al-Assad is very much, should have gone a long time ago. I wish we know how to do it. It's not what, but how. If you have a formula, you know, everybody would be interested in the how, because most people don't want external military intervention. How to do it? Everybody says we don't want the West to intervene militarily, and left alone, people are unable to change the system. That means either, you know, you have to arm one group or the other, or you try to find a political situation. You cannot just say, I want Bashar al-Assad gone, and he will be gone. I wish that could happen.
All right. Fawaz Talal, you don't want intervention by the West, do you? You
yes.
don't.
And all the Syrian people will fight any intervention by the West. But all the Syrian people have the right. They want the right to defend themselves. It's not fair to prevent us of being armed, for example, while giving a river of arms for the other side. We have the right to defend ourselves.
It's not the West that is arming the other side.
The Russian and the Iranian. The West is not arming us and preventing everybody of arming us. This is exactly what's happening. And let me tell you something about how we can get rid of Bashar. We have the right to defend ourselves. It's not a political solution, because there is no environment for the political solution. We have the right to fight Bashar with arms. Otherwise, those people who was fighting Nazis was a terrorist also. Otherwise, those people who was fighting for their dignity in every part of the world.
So you just want to go on fighting? You don't want a political solution?
If you want a political,
you don't want to go to Geneva?
If you want, how you can sit with somebody who killed, till now, 200,000 people, 11,000 of them is children, and 11,000 of women, 500 child have been tortured to death, with a quarter million of detainees, with 8 million displaced people inside. And how you can talk with is it, look.
I'll come back to you in a minute. But Dawood Kuttab, should there be a political solution now?
I think there has to be a political solution.
I don't think there is
the military
or does it end on the military playing field?
I think it has to be political. I mean, initially, one was hoping that this could be done quickly. It's clearly not going to be over quickly. There's a lot of forces on both sides. Unless, you know, in the end of the day, you're going to be walking on corpse. What good is Syria with people walking on corpse?
Is there any hope with the Geneva too, if it even happens?
I think
if anybody goes?
Any political solution that stops the killing, that gives people their dignity back and their rights, should be welcomed by everybody.
All right, I'm going to take another question. Lady in the second row there.
Okay, my question is, how come you say that the West has failed the Syrian people, while there are lots of people, Syrians I know, say, please West, don't interfere, we don't need your help, and you are supporting terrorists inside our country. So they are in awkward situation. some say help us, and some please don't interfere. Whatever they will do, the Syrian people will still say, some parts will say that you failed us if they did so. If they did the other way, others will say you failed us.
Good. You're not seeing somebody is killing, somebody is being killed. You are not seeing the victim and the murder. You are not seeing that there is a dictatorship regime.
What is your point? She's saying that you're so divided, the West doesn't know what to do.
Yes, we can be divided, but we should not be killed because we don't disagree with the regime about his this 20% of the people of the other side.
I mean, he's partially right that you shouldn't kill people because they're divided, but I still think that the division is not being respected by your own opposition. In other words, when you have opposition groups commit human rights violations, the opposition does not publicly attack them. They stay quiet. If they're really committed to democracy, as you're saying, and I hope they are, and I hope Syria will be a democratic country, then you have to be courageous and stand against your own groups that commit violations of human rights. You cannot play both games. You cannot say, we're allowed to be divided, it's okay, we have different points of view, and we want the West because they support human rights to come and defend us. And when your own groups violate human rights, you're quiet. Why?
We are doing that. Actually,
why answer that point? Why are you silent? Why are you silent when your own groups commit human rights abuses?
Look in the media how the coalition, for example, condemned those people who have the cross over the church, those people who became some crime. We have already many statements condemning this violence. On the other side, we just see supporting for this kind. Look, we are condemning this kind of violence. It's already in the media. Just look for it. It's available from all levels of the opposition.
Okay, all right. I'm going to take another question. Gentleman in the front row there.
What would it take for the West to interfere in Syria? I mean, how many people do we have to see dead, or do we just have to wait till to the last Syrians to die? So what do you think it will take the West to interfere in Syria? I would like to hear from you both, and maybe from you, Tim. Like, is the West just going to sit down and moderate debates between Arabs?
I'm here to ask the questions, not answer them.
That's basically what the West has been doing now, just trying to make Arabs talk to each other, and they're not. So what would it take for them to interfere? I mean, as much as I agree with you, we would like to know an answer.
Yeah, but answer me how you want them to intervene. It's not just to intervene, it's how. Militarily? The Syrians don't want military. What can the West do other than military intervention?
There's different kinds.
I think they have to do something about it.
What?
Till when we have to just keep looking at this happening? It's affecting everybody. There are thousands of people are being killed on both sides. And we cannot see.
Why not tell the two sides then to go to Geneva and sort it out?
I mean, I don't know.
Isn't that the only track that's left?
That's what seems to be the only solution right now, but I don't think they're going, honestly.
You asked for the solution, and the lady just give you an answer for that. And I give this advice, by the way, for many politicians since 2 years by the West. I told them, please get rid of Bashar Assad with any way, even with assassinating him through a coup, through a cruise missile. In this case, excuse me, you will open the gate for some people inside the regime, the Alawites who control to be our partner in the future. We need them as a partner.
All right.
But Bashar Assad can't be a partner of a political solution.
Gentleman over there.
Is the West responsible to gather the opposite of Bashar al-Assad? Is it responsible to help the rebels, as you asked, sir, with guns and guns and guns? What do you want from the West?
Well, before I put that question to Fawaz Teller, what do you think the West's responsibility is?
It should, first of all, go to Geneva too. Take those people who doesn't want to sit and discuss the future of Syria, take them to Geneva. Why the President Bashar said, yes, I will go, but all of his fighters said, no, we are not. Salim Idris refused to go. Ahmad al-Jarba refused to go. Then
the opposition fighters refused to go.
Of course. This is my question.
Actually, when we go to Geneva and negotiate with Bashar Assad without any commitment from the international community, even the commitment that Bashar Assad will not be part of the transitional period, this will be a fully successful Bashar Assad, because in this case he is escaping with his crimes. Bashar Assad is not part of the solution. You have to understand that in the West. Otherwise, this will take on 1 year, 10 years. Okay, this is our destiny.
Let me just ask Dawood Kutab. Assad is not part of the solution. He has to be part of the solution, doesn't he?
I share with my colleague that Bashar should not be part of the solution. The question that we have, that I've been asking over and over, is how we can get to this point.
His forces still control every regional capital in Syria apart from one, Raqqa.
That's true. That's true.
Every regional capital, after 2.5 years of fighting.
There has to be a political solution to resolve the conflict.
Which includes him.
Which includes his regime. It has to be. I don't see a way, I cannot think of a way that unless he has a heart attack or unless his own people kill him, how can you get to a point where he's gone? I mean, I don't know the solution. What's the roadmap to get rid of...
When the Americans just decide to attack him after the chemical weapons attack, all the regimes start to be collapse. Like, look, Bashar Assad afraid like
so you're for intervention?
Was one thing.
No, wait a minute. You said you're not for military intervention.
No. I thought you are talking about the political.
So you're thinking
political solution.
I'm giving you the environment, but not to intervene.
I'm giving you the environment of the political solution. I told you we want to fight to get rid of the regime. If you want a political solution, there's an environment for that. You can work for it.
If you hadn't been so divided, you might have made more progress on the battlefield.
Yes, of course.
Isn't that true?
Yes, but
you admit that?
Yes, yes.
But I'm going to take a question from the gentleman in the third row. Yes, you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Why do we have an international community if a massacre will be on the ground and we'll just sit and watch? Come on, guys. There are chemical weapons that were used on the ground.
There is a deal now that may actually get rid of those chemical weapons. That's not a good thing.
But that wouldn't prevent other massacres.
Is that a good thing, at least to get the chemical weapons out of Syria? Is that a good thing? You're not impressed?
A teeny tiny bit of this story.
Okay, well, there isn't much progress, but that's something.
Yes.
You'll admit it's something.
Sorry?
You will admit that that is something. Something positive.
Yes, something positive, but it's not up to the expectations.
So what do you want the West to do in Syria?
I think that Saudi Arabia, Emirates can feed the refugees, and that's not the job of the Western countries. And one thing more, whenever we say that the Syrian people do not want the intervention, who said that? Why all of a sudden we know what the Syrian wants, and we think that
here is one who doesn't want it.
He's part of the story.
He's saying he doesn't want intervention.
Yes, I'm continuing in that. He's part of the Syrians, but he's not all of the Syrians. When he asks for weapons, we tell him, you don't represent all the Syrian parties because you are not united. But when he says, we don't want intervention, oh, look, the Syrian people do not want intervention.
What's your question?
My question, if there is an international community, there's a burden in that international community, and they should stop the massacre, even if they need to interfere as military, and I am for the Libyan...
okay, so whatever the war is, whatever the civil war is anywhere in the world, the international community should intervene. Dawood Kutab.
Well, if this was called the world has failed Syria, I would be on the other side. But to say the West has failed Syria as if the West is so much better than the rest of the world, they're not. They're just like everybody else. And to put them on the side, higher platform to say the West, because they're so good, they failed Syria. I don't see their international policy that much better.
Well, we are talking about the international community, and we are not expecting the Russians and the Chinese to help the Syrian people now.
Why not?
Because they are supporting Assad.
Yeah. Why not?
Who used the chemical weapons, who's killing his people.
Excuse me, we can't hear if everybody talks at the same time.
So if we are expecting somebody to help them, as they did help the Libyan people, it's the West to expect now.
So you expect the West to take part in any conflict, anywhere, anytime where people are being killed?
Yes, why not?
Okay.
That's
All right.
why we have an
Fawaz
international
Salam.
community.
I agree with you that the Russian Israel is helping all the Syrian people, especially the opposition, to go to the heaven quickly. This is how they are helping us. Regarding the chemical weapons, yes, there's partly it's good that we get rid of weapons which we can't handle with the regime. But on the other side, the international community give the mandate for the Bashar Assad to stay in the power till he finish of getting rid of these chemical weapons. This is part of the deal. And he said,
which is not long.
Yeah,
which is not long.
Yeah, he can drag on with yes.
No, there are time limits.
Yes,
there are time limits.
So he can kill us for another 6 or 9 months. So it's not matter.
Weeks. Weeks.
No, not weeks. 6 to 9 months starting from now. It means 100,000 people to be dead.
All right. I'm going to take another question. Gentleman in the front row.
You talk about Syrian civil war or Syrian crisis. A matter of fact, you know, which is quite obvious, it is actually a regional war. You know, many powers within the region are settling accounts in Syria. And for the West to really intervene in this sort of chaotic, very murderous and destructive conflict, it would really add fuel to the fire. And actually what the West seems to be doing correctly now, with all respect, you know, I'm not pro-West or pro-East, is going about it the right way, you know, seeking a peaceful solution by consensus.
Vote with me, no.
He already voted, I think.
You agree with me?
No.
No, he's not going to agree with you. I think we know that, yeah, in advance. Okay, I'm going to take a question from the gentleman in the front row.
Anyway, thank you for
Good evening, everybody. I'm a journalist, but I'm going to talk as a Syrian first. As a Syrian, I don't really care about who is fighting or who is the revolution or civil war. I care about the people and the humanitarian aid that's delivered to Syria. As we know that we are really acknowledged that there is huge humanitarian efforts by the West to help the Syrians. We all agree on that. But who is dealing with that? That's the regime who delivered the humanitarian aid from the West or from other countries to the Syrian people. So how could the people, for instance, the people who are living in starving places, in blockaded places, how those people can live and deliver the aid to those people? That's what I really care about, the starving people.
How do you suggest that the aid should reach those people?
The communities, the foreign communities should pressure on Assad to let the humanitarian aid companies to really work with people, not with the regime, to deliver the aid to the Syrian people, not to the regime, then the regime really deliver it to the people.
Okay,
thank you.
Dawood Kutab, thank you.
I believe that this is one area where the West should put their foot down, which is they should not go to Geneva without a corridor, a humanitarian corridor to allow humanitarian aid to the Syrians.
So how do you create this corridor then?
I think they can, I don't know how they do it.
Okay, you would have to take troops. It doesn't open by itself.
You can
would
bring
have to
UN
have
troops.
Let's force it open.
That's not
so
intervention.
Then it's military intervention.
No, but that's UN. Intervention. I don't say West. You had the word West in your title. If it's international troops that are protecting the humanitarian support, that's fine. I have no problems with that. And does that violate my position
and that would require an agreement at the UN that you don't have.
Well,
a level of agreement
the Russians,
that you don't have.
The Russians would come along if that was the only condition to get the opposition to come and to really get things going. I think it's a light condition. It's not a huge condition. It's not asking for bringing down the regime. It's saying humanitarian aid. That's a That's a clear
But those corridors
case,
don't open by themselves.
I understand, but you need
and
to
they
find.
have to be defended.
There has to be a political agreement on the international level, and the Syrians have to agree to it. And I think the Russians can be encouraged to vote for that on Chapter 7 in the Security Council.
When you want to have aid inside Syria, you have the United Nations, this is the international law, ask the permission for this Assad regime. So he is not allowing them to go to the liberated area. He allowing them to go to have this aid through his channels. And in this case, this aid is going all to his people who don't need it.
What choice does the West have?
We will have we can do our liberation and our corridors. We have the right to defend ourselves. This is my point.
You don't control enough territory
I will
to
not,
do that,
I don't ask, I will not ask that.
You don't control enough territory to do that.
Yeah, we can.
You don't control it.
We can't
you control less this year than you did last year.
All the north now is open for the United Nations, but they can't just cross the border through the Turkish border because they need the approval of Bashar Assad.
I'm going to take a question from the gentleman at the back there. Yeah.
I'm a journalist from Syria, named Qutayb al-Khatib. My point, the West has failed and keeps silent the Assad regime criminal, what he's doing now inside Syria. My point...
Who has kept silent?
West.
Really?
Yes.
Dawood Qutayb, has the West kept silent?
I'm not a defender of the West, but certainly they have not.
Well, you are on that position.
I know, but I'm not defending the West. I think the international community has spoken, but they have not put enough weight behind what they said. I think that's the point. It's not just they have spoken. I think the experience of the chemical resolution could have been a way to get the corridors, could be a way to get other things. They can build on that. But the problem is that there is either 100% or nothing. Either we'll get rid of all the Syrians who support Bashar al-Assad and himself or nothing. I think there are other things that you can get for your own people, like corridors. You make that your goal, you can get it. It's not the best, and it's a gradual process. But you have to build trust. You have to have unity as opposition. And I think that you can build on that.
Okay, gentlemen over there, you've been waving your hand.
To assume that the West will intervene based on moral issues or the moral stand is totally mistaken. And I think the assumption here is not right. That's why a couple of times so far...
But the West never promised to intervene in Syria. On the contrary, it said it wasn't going to intervene in Syria. Obama in 2011 said we're not going into Syria. It's the job of the Syrian people.
I did not say otherwise. I'm just saying the topic here is confusing people because Mr. Qutayb at least found himself 2 times being asked by you, where do you stand? He's not supporting the West. He's just trying to find a way in between that has the West failed the Syrian people.
Fawaz Tello is quite convinced that the West has failed Syria, aren't you?
Yes, actually, there's two different questions. The first question, that should the West interfere in Syria directly? I said no, and you said no. I already said no, but my opinion that he is making mistakes because he's preventing us of defending ourselves. We are not asking for his intervene. He is having a very great pressure upon the Saudis and the Qataris and the Turkish for not arming us. I am talking about facts on the ground. This is what the Americans doing since 2 years.
Do you buy that?
I mean, I don't see American troops stopping the opposition from getting weapons. I mean, you're talking about heavy weapons, you're talking about planes. I think
we're talking about ammunition at least.
Yeah, I don't think the West is stopping. I don't think I'm not an intelligence person. This is secret information. You might have much more than I know, but I don't think that the West is stopping the opposition from being armed. I think what is the problem that the opposition has is they don't have heavy weapons. That's the problem. And heavy weapons, you mean tanks and planes. That's what the Assad is really doing to killing the Syrian people. That is the problem.
The problem also for Fawaz Tello, isn't it, that the West doesn't know which groups it's supplying with arms. It doesn't want the arms to go to the extremist groups. It doesn't want it to go to al-Nusra.
Believe me, the intelligent security in your country and the American and the European know more about that more than me as an opposition.
How do you know?
Who is the bad guy, who is the good guys? They know.
How do you know? How do you know?
Because since 2 years they are working about that. They are just collecting information about it. They know about that exactly, and they know whom they should arm if they have, the will for that.
That's your view. Yeah, gentleman in the 3rd row. Yes, you. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. My question is, if all parties outside Syria get rid of their own interest and act with a humanity oriented, do you believe that they should find a solution to stop killing?
That the Syrians themselves can find a solution. Is this what you're asking? Can the Syrians themselves find a solution if all the other powers stay out?
Exactly.
Can they? Can they find a solution?
If we get rid
all
of
the other
Bashar
parts?
Assad and a few criminals around him, we can do that, yes.
Dawood Kutab, do you think we can?
I don't think so.
The Syrians can't do this by themselves.
I think the Syrians, disunited as they are, divided as they are, they have a problem. And that's why the political diplomatic solution, or the gradual solution, could be the most humane solution. It's not the best solution, it's not what you like or what I like, but I think if you're talking about a humane solution, so can stop or slow down the hemorrhage of the Syrian people, I think we have to find a political solution.
Okay, all right. I'm going to take some questions from way out over there. Thank you.
Why should Syrian people seek help from others, especially the West? I mean, why? The second one, why just the West? I mean, aren't Russia and China key players in this matter and this issue? And my question is, don't you think that Bashar's removal is happening soon? I mean, after what happened a couple of days ago, the deal with Iran. Okay, Iran, I think, is ready to give up on Bashar. But if you ask about where is Russia in this role, I mean, okay, Iran is ready to give up on Russia if they get the military support from the US and the allowance to proceed in the nuclear activity.
Okay, you've raised a lot of issues there, but you've raised also the deal with Iran, the nuclear deal with Iran.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Does it make peace easier or harder?
No, it's not. It's against our interest because
Why?
Iran, they have their whole plans for the area. The international community, the Americans especially, give Iraq as a present for the Iranian, and later they give Lebanon as a present for the Iranian, and they are now giving Syria as present for the Iranian.
This is a deal that halts further work on the Iranian nuclear program, at least for 6 months. And you're telling me that's not a good thing? It's not a good thing.
Our blood also is so precious.
I'm not asking about that. I'm not asking about that. But a deal that stops the Iranian nuclear program for 6 months at least is not a good thing.
Yeah, look,
it's not a good
like
thing.
the chemical weapons. Now the Iranian is the partner of the international community regarding the chemical weapons, regarding the nuclear program, but also they are their partner in the area, which means they have to accept their terms which coming to Bashar. Look, Bashar.
Okay, so
the Iranian will not
let
Bashar down, by the way.
The nuclear deal.
Yeah, I think the deal is good for 2 reasons. One, it shows that the international community can get together and can make a decision, and I think you can build on that something for the political process. Secondly, I think the Iranians are under a lot of pressure to prove that they are not moderating just for the one time, that there is genuine change in Iran. If that is true, and I don't know, I'm not, if there is change in Iran, that can actually have positive influence on Hezbollah and on any kind of a political process. So it depends if you trust the Iranians that they have changed, or if you think that they are just, you know, as Netanyahu said, you know, wolf in a lamb's clothing.
Where do you stand on this?
I think there is enough there to test their moderation. I think they've done enough to not only make statements, but agree to a process that can give them a chance. I think if they are rewarded for moderating, I think they will moderate more. If they're not, they will shift to the other side.
But it's positive.
I think there is a reason to be positive, yes.
In a region that has so little to be positive about, it's something. Okay. Gentleman back there. Yes, you.
My point is that normally when we solve problems, the thing is both parties have to give up all preconditions. But why isn't that happening in Syria? Why isn't the opposition giving up preconditions? And why isn't the government giving up preconditions?
Okay.
Wouldn't that be the best first step towards Geneva II?
Can I ask where you're from?
Sri Lanka.
From Sri Lanka. Okay. Both of you, both sides, give up all preconditions, just go to the talks.
What precondition? We have 250,000 detainees. Why those people has not been released? We have.
So you want them released before you want to go to Geneva?
Look, the opposition asked for something in advance. They said release prisoners. release the women, release the children, have those people under the siege having food, at least having that, and the regime didn't accept that. And recently, for 3 days, Mr. Ibrahimi was saying with Mr. Ban Ki-moon, no, everything should be discussed on this table. He can, Mr. Ibrahimi, he can discuss it with his friend from other, but nothing will be influenced or
okay. So you have your conditions.
Yeah. I think if you're talking a political stream, politics is the art of the possible. So you have to compromise. If you think and you believe this is a genuine revolution, the entire Syrian people are behind it, that you can find a way to get them behind it, then refuse the politics and hope for change. But then it's not a very humanitarian path. So it depends. If you look at
so what are you saying? Is it realistic to drop all preconditions and go to the talks?
I think it's not realistic. I think you have to have some principles. I think giving up all preconditions is playing into the hands of the other side. But you need to be honest enough to weigh where you are. You cannot make extreme demands that don't fit your balance. There's a balance of power here. It's not, there's no one side. If they had won on the ground, they can make conditions. They haven't won.
So we have to work on the ground so we can change this balance.
Okay,
Thank you for agreeing with me with that.
Lady there, yeah, please.
Thank you. So I guess my question is regarding the term intervention itself. The journalist from Syria Direct mentioned humanitarian intervention. Others have thrown around military interventions, and others have said economic intervention. So I'd like to know what specific kind of interventions that you would like, if you would like it.
Well, I think you're back to your humanitarian corridor.
I think that is one way. I mean, again, if you believe that there is a political solution, then you weigh the balance of forces and you say, yes, we can get at least a corridor and get the food to the people, get the women released, as you suggested, in other words. If you think this is, an all-out revolution and you don't negotiate with the other side because they're terrorists and so on, then, I think, God bless you, you have to have a lot of patience. It's going to take a long time. And this is up to the Syrian people.
Okay, I'm going to take a question from the lady in the third row there.
Hello, my name is Lahib Ben Sakhar. I'm a Jordanian. In another note, other than the political aspect that we've been discussing for the last 1 hour, Jordan is suffering. We've been asking, the humanitarian part of this issue hasn't been addressed very well, in my opinion. We're here to discuss also people, not politics. It's an impasse when we're looking at political process. Jordan has been asking for 5.2 billion to accommodate hundreds and hundreds of thousands of our brothers from Syria. Our population has increased by 10 to 12%. Our infrastructure has been deteriorated, health sectors, education, everything. So I think, as a Jordanian, I'm obliged to bring this issue on the table. Thank you.
Okay, what do you want done about it?
Okay, since the political part is an impasse, why don't we have a look at somewhere where we can help? Refugees. I used to work for UNHCR. They need all the money that we can give them. Jordan received 700.
Okay, so basically you're looking for more funds. This is what you want.
No, we're looking for what we asked for, not more.
Okay.
It's 5.2 billion. We received 700, and our country is suffering. So this is an issue I want to put on the table.
Okay. I'm going to take a question from the lady over there. Yes, you. If you would stand up, please.
Hello, everybody. I have a question. Your Syrian guest. Why should you or the West insist on removing the Syrian dictator when we saw what happened in Iraq or Libya?
When you saw what happened in Iraq and Libya, why do you want Bashar removed?
Who said our destiny in the Arab world to have a dictatorship of chaos? We have a third path. We are working with that, and we will have it. Look. All the revolution in the world, like the French Revolution, have been passing along a very terrible path, you see, and this is part of the price I should pay. And let me tell you facts here. the international community will intervene with anyone, and you find an excuse about that in 3 cases. First, chemical weapons. I mean, notice that, and he could solve it because the regime was using the chemical weapons to prevent himself from the people and then from the international community. Second, in the issue of the refugee. For example, in Jordan, believe me, if you have another 500,000 Syrian people here, refugee in Jordan,
you're not really addressing the question.
Non-flying zones in South.
You're not addressing the question. The question is, when you saw the chaos that happened in Libya and elsewhere, when the dictator was removed, why are you able to assure people that's not going to happen in Syria?
Let's try to
that's the question. How can you ensure that?
Let's try to avoid that by having a real partnership with the good people who's fighting on the ground.
All right, gentlemen in the front row.
Hello, I'm a Syrian journalist working for Syria Direct.
Could you stand up, please?
Okay, sorry. My question is, so much of Western rhetoric on the Syrian crisis have drawn attention to quote-unquote, a sectarian divide in my country. I'm not aware of many European or American Christian public figures denouncing or calling for the end of this oppressive dictatorship. How can anyone say the West has done everything it could for Syria when its own religious leader have failed to speak out against the
okay, so you wanted to hear more from religious leaders in the West?
Yeah, and as well...
Do you think, Dawood Kutab, do you think that's a valid criticism?
I think the religion of the West is not so influential on the people who are fighting. So yes, it would be good to, and I think the Pope and many leaders have made statements. I'm not sure what that would make a big difference to the Salafis or to the Alawites or whatever. But there is, I mean, the one maybe difference is the Christian Syrians who have suffered and who are sometimes divided on this issue. So I think it would help. I think the leaders would help if they can insist on all the countries being involved. The Russian Orthodox Church is very powerful. So if all the Orthodox in the world said, we want to stop this killing in Syria, that would change Russia and that could bring about international consensus. So I agree partially, but I don't think the big problem is just from the religious point of view. I think there's much deeper problems.
All right, we're running out of time, but before we go to the vote, I'm going to ask each of our speakers for just one sentence to address to the audience, to ask them to vote on your side. Fawaz Tello, just one sentence, please, to the audience.
One sentence.
Before they vote.
I told you, we are the Syrian people having our cross on our shoulders. We are purifying of 50 years of humiliation or silence. Let us have the right of dignity and real democracy without this dictatorship with any way.
All right. Dawood Kutab.
If you trust that the West lives by its own principles, then vote for this resolution. If you don't believe that it lives by its principles and you believe that the international community, including Arabs and Syrians, should all work together to solve this problem, then vote against it.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the point we're going to vote on the motion. The West has failed the Syrian people. If you want to vote for that motion, you don't vote because you were speaking. We know which way you're going to vote. If you want to vote for that motion, you're going to need in a minute to press button 1. If you want to vote against that, it's button 2. Whichever button you want to press, and you only need to do that once, would you do it now, please? Just to say that this debate is going to be shown on Deutsche Welle and its partner stations around the world. We are going to stay in touch with you, I hope, via our website, www.newarabdebates.com. Please send us your suggestions and your observations. We're always glad to hear from you. Suggestions about what topics we should be covering, which speakers we should invite. Okay, we should have the result for you any second now. 54% believe that the West has failed the Syrian people. 46% say it hasn't. The motion has been narrowly approved. Can I just say, though, that there has been a swing away from the approval. The way you voted before was 72% for the motion and 28% against. So, Dawood Kutab, you have swung voters away by 18 points. By 18 points. How do you feel about that?
Well, I wish I didn't. I wish the Syrians the best. I wish the Syrian people can have freedom, and I wish they can find it, and I wish also that the West would stand up for what they believe and not just give lip service.
Pawestello?
I respect the
A
opinion.
last point? All right, okay.
That's all.
Thank you very much indeed to our speakers for coming here tonight. Thanks to you, the audience. The New Arab Debates will be back again in about 6 weeks' time. Next time from Tunis. Till then, from all of us on the program, have a safe journey home. Thanks for coming. Good night. Good night.